Hello, welcome to episode 29 of the Final Whistle podcast. I'm to you live from my villa in the Costa del Somerset, and I'm joined with my good friend Anthony and my equally good friend Nathan. We're delighted to be back after a short break. Ant's now an established father and got his feet under the table with there. His wife doesn't really do much. Apparently he does it all. But it's just great to be back and get stuck into some subjects. And some of the subjects we're going to be talking to today is there's been a lot about women's pathways and women's football, which is interesting because I'm hearing, and I'll be interested to see what the boys think, that men are saying, oh, I'm going to go the FIFA pathway. I even had a level 2B say that, oh, we got kicked off as 2A, got kicked off as 2A. He wants to take the route of the women's pathway because you'd get FIFA quicker. What's all that about, lads? And by the way, we do know there's no women on this episode, so it might be a bit, credible. I don't know, but what do you think, boys?
Well, it's the outsider perspective, kind of, because I'll be honest, I haven't refereed any women's football since before COVID, and it's not because I won't do it. Like, I don't think women are extra contagious or anything like that, and I won't go near them. It's just, for whatever reason, I've primarily been given men and youth games. But if you're, and I don't like using the term, but if you've got the mindset of a mercenary referee and you want to get as much money out of your game and get as high as possible, as quick as possible, wouldn't you take the path of least resistance? Wouldn't you go, I can get on the FIFA list in 5 years through the women's pathway, or it could take me 10 to 15 years if I go on the men's pathway? Well, if I'm a mercenary referee and I want to get as high as possible and as famous as possible and all this sort of stuff, I'd choose the path of least resistance, and I'd go, oh, okay, I'll ref women's games. Generally, from my experience, most of the women's games are easier to manage than the men's, and that's not said with any sort of disrespect to the men's or the women's game. That's my personal experience. That's how it's been. So if you're a decent referee, like you can get higher up the ladder quicker if you do think, well, I'll just go for the women's pathway. I don't know what you guys think about that, but from my perspective and my experience, that seems to be the logic behind these people that want to go for the women's pathway.
I think that, and I know Martin might have an opinion on this as a coach with his coaching head on and coaching background, but for me, the technical challenge of refereeing a women's game is much, much more different because I find myself taking up different positions on the field of play, for example. And I think that, I did a game just last weekend between two women's academy teams. And in the first sort of 5 to 10 minutes, I was having to almost think twice about every path of patrol that I took because the way that the women move around the field is different. So I can understand that there's a difference, not a good difference or a bad difference, just a difference. But I think that, I can understand obviously what you're saying about the mercenary referee in particular. And, and if I think that, I heard recently that there's going to be probably more steps to take before the referees can be at the international level within the women's game. And I think that can only be a good thing because we've seen with Sian Massey previously, and we've got people like Natalie Aspinall and Lisa Rashid and people like that who are on the Football League now, that the quality is there. We've got a talent pool of high-class female referees, not to mention, obviously, wonderful County Durham referee, Rebecca Welsh, who made her Football League debut in April. We can see that we're in a really strong position because, if you look to the previous sort of generation, if you like, of referees, where Wendy Toms was the sort of the leader, and I think it was maybe Amy Fern as well a little bit, they were more outliers and they were more on their own, whereas we've got a much stronger group of female officials who are operating in the men's game now. So I've often thought that, and not in any way discriminatory or otherwise, I've always wondered, are those officials not a loss to the women's game? I know it's great that sometimes they'll do them for the big games, maybe like the FA Cup and things like that in the women's game. But are those officials a loss to the women's game because are the female players not getting the best standard of officiating because the best female officials are in the men's game rather than in the women's game? And that's a question that I've often wondered. But if I'm being completely honest, I haven't known enough about the appointments process to fully understand that, I think.
Me not to have an opinion on something, I'm laughing at you. My opinion on this is that I don't believe in separate pathways. I just don't believe in it. I just don't understand it. And I'm not sure. I think when we had oh my God, our amazing guest Sonia Denicourt on, I think she agrees with me, didn't she? That she said, why isn't everyone just getting the same opportunity? I believe, and anyone from the women's game is welcome to come on here and challenge me on this. I believe the problem is that our top men at 2A, for instance, our top men don't want to do the women's game. I think a lot of them feel it's below them. So to me, why didn't they just bring the WSL into the same pathway what 2As do? And football league refs, why not? And I think, you know what I think it is? I think it's politics. I think because the FA run the Women's Premier League and the PGMOL run everything above 2A. And they want to have this little bit of control. And I think that's why I believe this position of the PGMOL having a women's elite manager is a real positive move, because what happens next? Where do the referees come? You can't have professional women referees just for the WSL. I know people are suggesting it, but I just don't see how they can justify it. There's small barriers already, I think, in the women's game where all the other match officials have headsets at that level of football. But at 2A they have it, but at 2B they don't. And when you look at the structure of football within, I was called to the conference for the National League, North and South, just a subtle difference. They don't wear headsets. And arguably that's a higher up the ladder in the football pyramid. What I believe needs to happen is that the WSL should go into the PGMOL and let all those referees at that level, at 2A and above, do those games and have that pathway for assistance. And this separation, I don't even think it fits with what UEFA and FIFA wants, because I'm not sure if there's female pathways in other countries. Challenge me on it. I'm pretty sure there isn't. Equally, you go right back to the elephant in the room, Sian Massey. Sian Massey, being on the select group for what, 11 years? Did we say earlier? 11 years? How many people have done the FA Cup who's come on the list after her? Why is she not doing men's Champions League until recently? Very, very recently. Why? Why were women just on a different list at FIFA? I just have never got it. But then we have Stephanie Frappart coming through from France. Bibiana Steinhaus coming through from Germany. Right to the top of the game. Over here. They just, no, go over there. And people tend to celebrate it. I'm sure there's a money thing as well. People celebrate it that we've got Rebecca Welsh. We had the Rebecca Welsh 20 years ago in Wendy Thomas. We had a Rebecca Welsh. She was, don't forget, Wendy Thomas did the Carling Cup final, whatever it was called, the Milk Cup final. I think it was Alan Wilkie was in the middle and he got injured. With top officials we've had, no one's asked the question, why has it took so long to find a Rebecca Welsh? Because you're telling me that talent hasn't been there. Of course it's been there. I genuinely believe when there's certain people at the FA, there wasn't a want to have women officials in our top flight game, because I just refuse to believe that between Wendy Toms and Rebecca Welsh, we've had no top class officials in the beginning of it. Amy Fain was good. There's been a few around there, like we said about Lisa Rashid. There's been, why? I just don't get it. That pool of talent has definitely been there. And someone at the FA, in my opinion, maybe one or two or three people, just didn't want it. And I'm pretty sure that now that movement of a role of elite women's gone over to the PGMOL, I wouldn't be surprised if certain people at the FA are quite relieved about that. I just think they didn't want to embrace it. And it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
I think I just want to strip it back, though, right, to a grassroots level for young female referees getting started in the game, okay? I can see the merits of a women's pathway at the grassroots level because, look, us three, we all know, we've all been in some pretty tough environments in men's football, okay, refereeing. And I can very much understand how certain women may feel intimidated. But like Ant said, you get more acceptance for the decisions that you make in the women's game. You get a lot more respect generally. And I can completely understand. I'm a man and I sometimes don't want to be in some of the environments that I'm in as a referee. So I can completely understand how a young girl, 16, 17 years old, who's in her first couple of seasons as a referee, does not want to go out and referee what is effectively a kicking match between a bunch of drunken men on a Sunday morning. I can completely understand that and completely understand why you might want to be on a women's pathway in order to not do that. I can understand there are some women who are also predisposed to that, who like that challenge and who enjoy it.
I'd like to challenge you on that.
Go on.
I'd like to challenge. I think no human being wants to be in that environment. I think it's irrelevant whether it's a girl or not. Some of the strongest people I know in my life have been women. Strongest people in my life have been women. And some of my friends, strongest friends, are women. And I'll take women into a game with me any time. I don't think the gender is the issue here. I think it's the failure to respond to the abuse that an individual, that a human being gets during the game of football. I
completely agree with that. And I think there's not enough that gets Martin.
Being females irrelevant to a mate. I think just give them all the same chance. I think the answers are there at P.O. Box 1966. No one's answered where was Wendy Toms and that journey that's now appeared as Rebecca Welch. What happened in that 20 years? Don't celebrate the last couple of years because all of a sudden someone came up with an idea of sticking women's football on a telly with the Premier League. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's like the outcome of neglecting it for years. Let's learn from it. Let's see what's gone on. Let's really look at it. Why didn't that happen? Make sure it doesn't happen again and give all match officials, no matter what gender, the best opportunity to referee at the highest level they want to, at the highest ability and talent that they want to develop. That's it.
Well, this is it. There are tons of people that may not be referees yet, but would be amazing at the job. They could do it. They could thrive and survive and very quickly move up the ladder. But you're stepping into an arena that is underrepresented by literally every demographic, unless you are a white male of about 30 years plus. And you say, okay, where was Wendy Toms between then 20 years ago and Rebecca Welch now? Where's today's Uriah Rennie? Where's the Asian referee? That's the first going to be the first Asian referee on the Premier League. Where are they? The society is not represented in referees. Yeah, but at the moment they're the token, and everyone's going, "Oh, look, they're held up. They're held up and going, oh wow, isn't this fantastic?" But it shouldn't be fantastic. It should be normal. It should be normal.
The fact that there's one black referee and one Asian referee, and you know them by name, tells you. If I said to you, "Is there one white male referee?" Well, no, there's loads. So the fact that we know who the one female referee to referee in the EFL this season is, and the one black referee to referee in the Premier League, and the one Asian assistant referee. In fact, actually, I think there's probably more than one Asian, which is a good thing in terms of the assistant referees pool. But we need to know more. We need to see more, and we need to not know them by name in the best way possible, because there should just be a group of them within a diverse referee workforce that exists within the professional game.
And you've nailed it there with that word. Referees have literally the worst diversity, I think, of any group within the sport. Teams are made up with people...
Unless, of course, you work at Tesco or Tesco. Tesco's just been found in court to be paying women different money to the men, haven't they? So that's quite a relevant case that society hasn't been really treating women the same. Sorry, so go back in.
Yeah, but if I ever find myself in Tesco in my refereeing uniform, I'm only going in for like a meal deal or something. So not contributing to the big problem there.
Yeah, brilliant. But just go back a little bit, so, and I think someone might pick up on it. And I know you didn't mean it. You said like Sonny and that with a token. I know you didn't mean that. The maybe word is token. I know people could be offended. I just need we need to.
Oh, I'm not calling them the token. I'm saying that the FA are holding them up as the token, and I think Nathan picked up on it in the fact that
they're the results.
We know who they are because they're put on this pedestal and see, look, there is a black referee. Look, there is a female referee. Look, there's an Asian official. Come on, that's not how diversity works. Diversity works, like Nathan said, by you not noticing the one that stands out for being different colour, the one that stands out from being different sex or gender. Diversity is just failing in refereeing.
They're the sort of the destination, aren't they? What it should be the journey. They should always been there all along the journey, shouldn't they? Intelligence go and look, and it's great. You know, I remember Jamal, we'll call him John Singh, Sonny's dad, top official years ago. Top official, really bloody good pool player as well. Used to batter us all at the PGMOL conference at pool in Killer. Very talented lad, but just quietly got about his business. And what's always bothered me, the same with Uriah, who likes to be called Uri, not Uriah. I found out when I did a game with him, is the fact that where's Jamel been? I know he was on the PGMOL as an assessor, and he was involved in some of these diversity equality departments and groups and stuff like that. But if he really wanted to get good with it, why wasn't he front of house on loads of things? All the jobs that's come up within the various bodies of football. Where was John? And I just think those opportunities are being missed with women, with black, with Asian, right across the spectrum. I really believe that's been going on too long.
What I think's brilliant, though, is in January of this year, the FA pulled some statistics on referees, which did show in the overall picture a decrease in the number of affiliated officials, which I think partly the pandemic has to blame, but there are probably other things that we need to talk about in amongst that. But for the first time ever this year, when they put the figures out, they included the fact that they've got 1,718 female officials and that 9.5% of the 27,451 are BAME. So the fact is that they are actually starting to identify who the referees are and what the makeup of the workforce is. But this is the first time they've done it. So I think what we want to see is more of that, because, you want it to be a little bit more akin to the playing side of it, where I would assume that there's more than sort of less than 10%. There must be more than 10% of female players, and there's less than 10% female officials within your 27,000 affiliated.
Well, they said why in those figures. They might just say, we've got this. We looked at a list right in the beginning when there was this big push for their women referees, and they overstated it, because when we went back to them, they corrected it, because in the list they were including people called Joe, who could be a man. There's even someone on the system that was called Stacey, that was a man. You know what I mean? So there's little things that went on to make them look good. Whether it was intentional or not, I don't know. But we found out that went on. What I believe they should do, now it looks like they got these figures identified. Why have they gone up? Let's identify what are we doing to engage these communities? What are we doing, about engaging women, and why? And a lot of people were saying, women, why are we having a women's only course? I've seen men be very shy in situations where they don't want to stand up and put their hands up, and they come to me during the presentation or after half time or whatever, say, hey, can you just explain? I was a bit too scared to put my hands up.
Yeah.
Women, a lot of women are like that because they feel comfortable doing that. With women only in the room. Men don't like doing it. And some women don't like doing stand up in a room full of men to ask questions on a course.
Yeah.
So I do agree to give them the opportunity that, have an all women's training event, an all women's referees course. I'm comfortable with that, because I understand talking to people and human beings that we are different in certain scenarios. And for a woman to stand up on a new referees course in a room full of men might be a bit of a barrier that doesn't need to be there. I'd say, Connor.
It's a comfort zone as well, isn't it? You go to a referees course and they're pretty much all the same. Everyone's sat down classroom style at their tables, takes people mentally back to school. Maybe they didn't have a good experience there. And again, putting your hand up, in a subject that you may know very little about, all that sort of stuff. I took my daughter to a sensory baby class where you sit down with all the other parents, and there was only me and one other dad there. All the rest were the mums. And that was me well out of my comfort zone. And all the babies were like, there was a tray of spaghetti and the kids were throwing that about, and there was all like these things. And I was like, just one at a time going, oh, okay, is this how you do this thing? And that was me being, I didn't want to get covered in spaghetti mostly, but the metaphorical spaghetti is you don't want to go into a situation where you're way out of your comfort zone, and you don't want to get, the piss taken out of you for asking maybe a daft question or what. Like, we'll all say there are no stupid questions. A question is something that you don't know, you need to know the answer for. But having these, maybe a different approach to training and these initial referee courses, maybe we don't throw everyone into a classroom, because if that was working, you'd have loads of people, all these courses would be filling up, and you'd have so many referees out there. Maybe the thing that's preventing people from coming in is the style of training on these initial courses. Maybe they look at the game a little bit further on and go, well, actually, I don't want any part of that. That referee looks like he or she is getting absolutely destroyed on that pitch. I don't want anything to do with it further down the line. Maybe there's an awareness course that we need to say, okay, so some games are like that, but you'll find that most of your games will just go off without a hitch, and at the end of it, it'll be fist bumps and handshakes.
I guarantee that at least once a month, if not more, when you're out refereeing, somebody will say to you, couldn't do your job, wouldn't fancy being a referee.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the most common things that referees hear, is people going, "Whoa, you've got a tough job, haven't you? I wouldn't fancy, you couldn't pay me enough to do your job."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's a big part of the perception.
That was a great shout. So that analogy about it, because there's lots of situations we can flip it to, like when we're in situations with women. When I was a builder years ago, I remember working in a factory and I had to put up a suspended ceiling, some office partition and all that. And the other side of one of the walls I was doing, we'd built a cafe, and it was majority women in this factory. And I was up there, the lads there, and I was like doing me bits, and they were like, whoa. They're all talking dirty about it. I've never felt so uncomfortable in my life. And I'm like, I'm not exactly a prude, am I? And then a really, really good friend of mine, daughter had a hen weekend down in Butlins in Minet, and I got contacts in various things, and one of the contacts me mates had a couple of minibuses, and he said, "Scouse, can you get that minibus for free for us, and we just pay for the petrol?" I said, "Yeah, no problem at all. Will you drive? I'll drive it for the insurance and all that." Oh my God, me driving a minibus full of women to a hen weekend, and it took 10 minutes to get it packed because they were all sticking all up Prosecco and whatever they had in. And then the evolution of the first 10 minutes, like, "Oh yeah, how you doing? Oh, lovely." Within an hour, they're all singing, dancing, talking about who they had sex with, and I'm like, whoa, let me put the radio on. And I felt really uncomfortable. And so why wouldn't women feel the opposite way around? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just think we just need to realize when people moan about like and the different challenges that women have, and I just think it's right for that side of things for women to be given those opportunities, in every walk of life, really. And I just think, we're missing the trick here with regards to Wendy, Rebecca Wells, what happened in between.
Yeah.
Let's not make sure that happens again when we're celebrating coming forward, when really we were there 20 years ago. What stemmed it? What stopped it? Sonia Denicourt went on to do what she did. At the same time, Wendy was there. Why didn't Wendy? Why? When she was clearly talented.
It seems to come in waves, doesn't it? Like the Wendy Tom, Sonia Denicourt era had this wave of like female empowerment, and they were like, you know what? A group of them just went, "I'm going to do this. I'm going to like break through into the men dominated world and show them I can do it as well." And then it's kind of died off, and now it's coming back up again with the likes of, well, I say Sean Massey, but she's been doing it for 10 years. But now you've got others that are starting to step up as well. But it's still dominated by the white man.
Yeah. Because Sarah Garrett is another one, got some football league, had troubles in fitness and stuff like that. There's been loads around who have always, Natty Walker was another one, wasn't you can rattle them up. They've all been there. But it just seems to get lost in this sort of like this nonsense, absolute nonsense, where a couple of people are making decisions. I feel in certain places that the signs are there for me that they just didn't want to engage with women match officials, and I think that needs to be looked at.
Who was in the Troy Townsend episode? We discussed this, didn't we? There were, I can't remember who it was. Forgive me. They gave an interview and they said level 3 or 2 is the black man's graveyard. In terms of
that was
cheers, mate. I'm glad that you're there with a little encyclopedia. But yeah, no, and it really, you know, you've got the guys that are at that level, and if they're saying that and feeling it publicly, saying it, then they've got to the point where they're like, I think I'm good enough to progress.
It must make you wonder, though, as well, and where the women's graveyard is. What level's that at? Where's that at? Or where has that been anyway? I'm not saying that it maybe is, because obviously we've seen Sam Allison come through, who's a black man. But so in previous years, where's the graveyard been for those?
Yeah,
I think, you know, you make a really good point, because at the end of the day, you are going to be demotivated. You were talking about the motivation side of it before from Martin there. You are going to be demotivated if you think that you're going to get to a point in your refereeing career and that the powers that be are going to decide that that's as far as you're allowed to go, irrespective of your ability.
I'm absolutely livid, sat behind these two high-ranking people at a county FA, and it always bothered me that I never said anything. I never stood up. But because I was pushing the Football League, I just wanted to keep my head down. And I think we've all been guilty in the past, and some are guilty of it now, of having really strong beliefs of wanting to defend this sort of thing, but just once, because the people you're challenging, there'll be consequences to challenging them, even if you're right. And that's why we're in a position, until we take that threat away, that these people in power can screw up your referee's career for having an opinion that is absolutely right to have so. But because you're challenging the people who's got the incorrect opinion, and they're discriminatory, but they've got the power, they don't do it. That's a major problem in our game.
Well, I think the problem as well is, just going on from that, is the people that put themselves into these positions, whether they're chief execs or whether they're RDOs or RDMs, whatever we're calling them these days, if they surround themselves with yes men or yes people, and you go in there and say, I fundamentally disagree with what's going on here, here's some ideas about how things could be improved. If they're not used to hearing any sort of criticism, whether it's constructive, whether it's general feedback or anything like that, if all they're used to hearing is everything you say is amazing, all your ideas are golden, just keep doing what you're doing, don't change anything, it's all working. If someone suddenly comes along and says, none of that's true, here's some evidence to suggest why, and here's some ideas about how we can correct that behavior and that systemic fault. Ego plays a huge part on whether you listen. Now, if you are a good top-level manager, you will listen to feedback from anyone. It doesn't matter where it comes from. You'll take on that information. What you do with that information, whether you implement a plan or a change around that, is down to you as a manager. But listening to the people that are on the kind of front line for you as a manager, that's what these people need to do. Now, we were chatting just before we came on air, saying, when was the last time that you were asked by anyone in a position like that? We've all had conversations with them, and they've always been very superficial. Are you okay? Good? Yeah, fantastic. Let's not dwell on it. When was the last time that anyone in a position like that said to a level 5, 6, 7 referee, how are you finding it out there? Spend 5 minutes telling me your experiences so I can get a feel for how you feel. I haven't had that conversation, and I know, okay, fine, COVID's been going on for a while, but even prior to that, there was no kind of outreach to say, aside from a faceless survey that the FA would send out, and that's more ticking boxes. Who are you? How old are you? What colour's your skin? What's your foot size? All this stuff. Not actually, how are you feeling it? There's got to be a general understanding about the malaise that's happening for referees at a grassroots level. And how that's affecting the dropout rates, how that's affecting the recruitment rates. then people at the top, they know that. It's not a surprise. Even if you could surround yourselves with 1 billion yes people, there's an awareness of what's going on at grassroots. And if it's not listened to, and then you're not going to affect that. That's the first step in change. And no change can happen unless people at the top say, how are you finding it? What do you think could be better? Instead of going, here's an idea I pulled out my backside, we're just going to try that. And it's going to be for level 5s and below.
Last season, okay, 6,700 referees hung up their whistle, okay? And the average over the last 10 seasons is 7,000 referees retiring, okay? Now, roughly, okay, they are making the same number back in recruitment. But what we're losing is experienced operators at supply and contributory league level. And when you bring a young referee who's newly qualified in, they need time to learn and develop and understand the role and to work with colleagues with more experience to pick up the tricks of the trade and all of that. And so you can't expect them to be at that level. And if there comes a shortfall now, and I know that certainly last season, I don't know whether it's still the case, there was a national shortage of level 4s that, you know, we ended up in that situation because of the way, I'm not necessarily saying that it's the way that it could be the way that the, you know, appreciated or not appreciated on a football pitch, or they might not get the support or whatever reason it may be. But, you know, when you're bringing in these new sort of 7,000 referees every year, a lot of them are doing it as a means to an end. So like Duke of Edinburgh or something like that. And a lot of them are doing it to sort of get some pocket money rather than work in a shop, which is actually how I started. But then I caught the bug for refereeing and enjoyed it and wanted to do more and develop. But I think, you know, we have to think very, very carefully about the reasons why we're losing experienced referees who had potential, referees who could have gone on and kept going on because they had the requisite skills and they were great game managers and, you know, great people and things like that. So I think that, you know, there needs to be some introspection and some reflection on what we do. And that's why I do what I do, because if it comes from, you know, problems with the psychology side of refereeing and mental toughness and resilience and things, well, you know, I do what I do because I want referees to be proactive rather than reactive. And because I think it's always more difficult to get a referee back after they've had a massive incident that's made them not want to referee anymore. So I think that, you know, trying to prepare referees and help them deal and be prepared to deal with these situations that unfortunately not going to happen, and maybe hopefully will only happen maybe once or twice in an entire career. But it's just one of these things that I think we need to be more introspective to understand the reasons why this is happening.
Yeah, and just look back at the people who were in charge and making those decisions. Why didn't it happen? But look back at it, all documented. They're just celebrating it, which is great to celebrate. Look, what's gone wrong? 3 massive holes there over the time span. The same individuals in charge of both. Yeah. Representation in the BAME community, female community. Same people. Don't understand it. And no one challenged you. And because people don't want to challenge that because they're all scared of getting up there, you know, it's scared of not getting up there, rather. That's the problem.
And I think the big part of it as well, Martin, by the way, is the fact that if you are a black boy or a black girl, even more so a black girl, because you can't see anybody who looks like you in terms of skin color, but then also you can't see anybody who's the same gender as you, even if you're a black girl. And I think that this is why it is really important that we have the role models like the Gills, you know, Bubsy and Sonny. And I think it's really important we've got Sam Allison and Rebecca Welch, because at least these people have been on television now and people can see them, and young people who have grown up. I always say this about, you know, sport that goes behind pay-per-view. How can we inspire people? If you think about Ian Botham at Headingley Test match in 1981, that Test match was free to air, okay? And it inspired a generation of kids to become professional cricketers. Now, in more recent times, great games like the Headingley Test of 2019 with Ben Stokes, that was behind a paywall on Sky Sports. So how can people young kids see that and want to take up playing cricket? Now, I've used cricket as an example there. But I just think that we need to be able to make these people visible. We need to make them accessible. We need to try and make them, which is what they are, human, and show they're just the same as you and I, and give kids that ambition and make it a realistic ambition and sell refereeing as a positive thing for everybody and not just, with respect, and white bald men.
No, but you're absolutely spot on. It should be the worst possible time to be a white bald man, because there should be everyone except the white bald men that are coming up into the world of the top echelons of refereeing. But it's not. It's dominated, and it looks like it's still going to be dominated because, as you know, you've got a beautiful head of hair right now, Nath, but you keep going, you pull it all out. Or you're going to turn into the silver fox that is Martin Cassidy.
Coaching 60, still got it. I think it's weird because the bald-headed thing was quite like all bald-headed people started appearing from everywhere, didn't he? You know, from there was Colleen then. And then all these people started to shave their head to be a referee. It was weird. But it never happened with Paul Dirk, and it was ginger. No one started I always find that strange when Dirks was a top ref. Yeah, I always find that funny. That was funny. But it's like with here, funny enough, we're here. When you see Sean bombing down the line with that ponytail bouncing, you never see a man with a ponytail in the middle, would you? You just wouldn't. Just imagine the people at the top of the FA. If someone turned up with a beard and a ponytail, won't we? Look what happened to Mike Dean's lockdown
beard. Yeah.
Honestly, it trended, didn't it? It actually trended on Twitter. But the story was, we know David Ellery said to people, too many beards, bellies, tattoos, which he definitely said. He admitted saying,
yeah, there's
one of your problems. It's this one man's vision.
You have to look a certain way, yeah. And I don't know, maybe David Ellery likes the aesthetic of a bald white man, and he wants to surround himself with bald white men for whatever reason.
No tattoos and no beads.
No tattoos, no beards.
I remember, honestly, guys, again, I remember clearly top referee on a football league doing the line to him. First game was over at Watford. Started when Watford were like championship, and I was really excited to get over there and do that level of game. One of my first ever games at like championship level, and he was putting foundation on his forearms to cover his tattoos. That big thick foundation.
Yeah,
I can't wear long sleeves, but I know David Ellery doesn't want me to be seen with tattoos on the pitch, so that's what I do. And I'm like, are you having a laugh? You're having a laugh.
It's mad, isn't it?
This is like, I was on a football league when I first got on, 15, 20 years ago, I can't remember. But that was then. That fear factor was there then, and it's still here now.
That's why, because the same person's that they're going saying the same things. He hasn't changed. No one's challenged him. No one's challenged his behaviours, so he hasn't had to change.
Yeah, great referee.
He wore the long sleeves, isn't it? At the end of his career, he wore long sleeves because he had the tattoo.
Yeah. And it's just look at it, and it's this disconnect, like you said about the BAMES community. Far more percentage of people play BAMES community, play football, doesn't transfer to refereeing. I think it's weird not to see a player with a tattoo now. My daughter's a tattoo artist, and her husband's got one of the best known tattoo parlors around here. They're absolutely rammed packed. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants tattoos. Tattoos is a thing, but because one man at the top said too many tattoos, shall I take him off then? Shall I just take him off? What shall I do? And it's just the ridiculousness of that man saying the things he said over the years, and everyone's just let him do. Right back to the Rob McCarthy thing with the racism that Lord Usley said he should be sacked. And there he is now, changing the rules almost weekly through IFAB, and no one seems to give a flying fuck about it. Yeah. Pardon my friend. And I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Neale Barry's leaving now. Good luck to him. The FA said they're going to use that as a restructure, that's documented. They're going to look at it to see if it's an opportunity for a restructured referees department. Amen to that. Amen to that. That department
feels needed. Yeah.
Completely. Not even sure how many active referees are in that department. I think Farai's the only one. No, Danny Mason was another good lad. But apart from that, what? I just find it funny. I just don't know how to get away with it. I just don't know how to get away with it. And I just think a fundamental change in that referees department needs to stop that disconnect. They're losing power almost weekly. We said earlier about the role of elite women refereeing going over to PGMOL, and that was Joanna Simpson's job. So,
what happens to her?
I think we've seen a lot of good things recently with the PGMOL doing spotlight streams and things like that. And I think that one of the things that definitely could come with somebody who's maybe a little bit younger and a little bit more au fait with the way that the social media generation is working and things like that would be to try and connect with them through these channels. These channels are there. We connect with referees on this.
Mate, you said PGMOL.
Yeah,
they're brilliant.
Yeah,
they're brilliant.
Yeah,
always have.
But if you look at the handle for the social media accounts they've created, it's FA PGMOL. So the FA needs to become, in my opinion, a part of that and do more. You know,
Nath, it is. The PGMOL is a quango of the FA, the Football League, Premier League. It's a quango.
What we're talking about, though, is there's another account, as you know, FA refereeing, okay? We want to see accounts like that doing more and engaging with referees and actually using it as a sales pitch for refereeing to try and recruit more referees as well, to try and bring into a generation and do more content. I actually think that about 10, maybe getting on for 15 years ago now, there was some really good content. You might remember with the Ray Winston videos, where they were using that as a really good platform to actually say, look, this is the difficulties that referees have. Let's use this and let's get respect and things like that. They need to do more because it's easy to do video content, to put it on social media. People can be scrolling down a timeline and click on it. And that's what, in my opinion, they need to do. And it's not just that, but that's one of the big steps that they can make, in my opinion, to make refereeing more human, more accessible, and make it more, a 21st century pursuit.
Yeah, and it needs to come from the top down. It needs to come from the account that represents the FA, not however else they want to do it.
I'm not even sure they're interested in it. Really not sure they're even interested in it. Look what they did through lockdown. Hardly anything. We did 10 times what they did. Us 3 Muppets with no budget, with no nothing. We did 10 times what they did. Embarrassing. Absolutely. But no one will say anything. But they don't want to they might not get the level 4s. They might not get the level 3s. It's absolutely embarrassing.
I know.
Again, there's another unique thing that happens in the world of football. There's not many other PGMOLs. I'm not sure that maybe 2 in the whole world, because it goes against what the FIFA statutes say about national governing bodies. They can control the top flight game. However, what a shining light they've been. They've totally embarrassed the PGMOL. But like I said earlier, the FA are part of the PGMOL. So why have they done so many positive, wonderful things? They're constantly in touch with the match officials. Everyone I know inside the PGMOL, from assessors to assistant referees, love the support they get from the PGMOL. Never hear anyone singing the praise of the FA. I just don't hear it. I just don't hear it. And a good example was the Mike Dean thing. When I put pressure on them to say, why isn't Neale Barry and Ellery coming out publicly supporting and condemning the referee abuse of Mike Dean and say that referee abuse is unacceptable at all levels? No, they still haven't done that to this day.
No.
They said, we put a statement out with everybody else about all forms of... No, you just never did anything. And then all of a sudden, they have this, they call a press conference. We're going to see how we robustly address referee abuse. Who did he stick out? Joe Simpson for Iron Allen. Everyone was in lockdown. Where was Ellery? He can't travel the world. We're on lockdown. Where was Neale Barry? He can't travel the world. On lockdown. No. Send Joe and Fry out. Let them face the music. Disgrace.
Yeah. Well, this is it. This is, I said, it needs to be the top level management. They're the ones that need to step up in those moments and say, we've heard you, we've listened, these are the changes that we're going to make. And that would go so far Because when you do look to the top, when you get no disrespect to Farai or Joe or anyone else that's not the top level, but we've seen that they've been put out in place of the people at the top. They've been there to be the human shield, so that any criticism come in, why wasn't anything done beforehand? What is being done now? What's going to change? Oh well, those two can deal with it. Because what if David Ellery's asked an awkward question? He doesn't want to look like a tit in the media, so he'll just stand back and let someone else take the flak.
It was absolutely ridiculous, and again, one of us challenged it and said it. Media, the journalists were coming to me saying, "Do you know this has been called?" I said, "Well, yeah, a few have told me," and I said, "Do you know why some big hitters, world-renowned journalists, do you know why David Ellery and Neale Barry? No, they haven't said. We'll ask them." And they never really answered the question. But Andy Ambler was there, who's a big hitter. He's also PGMOL, a top lad, Andy Ambler. Got a lot of time for him. The interesting question about all this, when Neale goes, is what happens to his IFAB position? I would be confident in stating, I bet you there's a bit of a war going on at the moment who gets that IFAB position. Because, like we said on our Twitter, this fight about IFAB, the FA is basically run IFAB really. Where is that? Who's going to get that position? Because if they're going to change Neale's position, which I think would be the positive move to do, throw it over to the PGMOL, because they've done a wonderful job supporting referees. Where's the IFAB position going? Where does it go? It's a very interesting thing going on at the moment when you look at between the lines. Women's elite refereeing's gone out the way. The PGMOL from 2A up, they've only got 4s and 3s left. The county FAs do all the rest. What's that department actually doing? What is it actually doing?
I know.
What's it doing? Well, I just can't get my head around it. Honestly, can't get my head around it.
I think that, the thing is, these people who've got these big positions and have particularly got a name as well, obviously, David Ellery and Neale Barry were Premier League referees that people knew. And I think that if somebody comes in who's somebody who is a known quantity, and I'm not saying it's going to be him or anything, I'll use a name for an example. For example, let's say Howard Webb, is somebody who I would say is refereed in the Premier League and internationally in the modern era, where we've had the great diversity of players. You think about those Manchester United, Liverpool games and things like that in particular, where they were really the two top sides with Rafa Benitez and Alex Ferguson, and they were really pushing each other and things like that. And he was right up there. So I think that, with somebody on there, and somebody, by the way, who's worked in America and given more opportunities to female officials than we've seen here, and more opportunities and I appreciate that the United States and Canada has a greater diversity within its population, but still has given more opportunities. So I think that he's had an opportunity to live in New York and to be central to Canada and America and be able to see not only the diversity of the workforce within the referees, but also obviously how he can engage them right at the grassroots level as well. So I think that, and I know that he works very closely with I forget the name, I think it's something like NISOA or something like that runs a lot of the grassroots referees in the US. He works very, very closely with the top people. I believe the top person within that organization is actually on the MLS as a referee as well. So I think, they've got all of that. You come with that requisite skill set. I think that that's what it needs. It needs somebody who knows how to embrace technology and can see the value of that, but also somebody who understands how we can bring diversity. And okay, we just had a bit of a laugh about white bald men, and that's exactly kind of what Howard Webb is. But he's a white bald man that sees everything through the eyes of a really diverse workforce, which is something that he's built up and he should be immensely proud of in the US, because you only hear about good things in terms of their implementation of VAR. They did it before a lot of the top 5 European leagues, including the Premier League. He's done an amazing job. And so if they can get somebody who's at the top of them, and I'm not saying it has to be Howard Webb, but if they can get somebody at the top of the FA who can appreciate the importance of a diverse workforce, but can also appreciate the importance of the modern world in terms of how we engage and recruit and retain referees, then we're going to be in a much stronger position. And of course, they're going to go to IFAB with a lot more open-mindedness. And and a modern approach, which, obviously Martin's very keen on cameras, and that's something that's a bit of modern technology, isn't it? So I think having that openness to the modern technology is going to be a crucial element, really.
I think nailed it, mate. It's time for a generational shift where we move away from these old boys in blazers and get in people that are a bit more of the modern world. It's like you wouldn't get a Warren Buffett managing a company like Facebook. It has to be Mark Zuckerberg, who's young and dynamic and moves with the world as it changes, not people that are set and stuck in their ways, and their ways are so far in the past that we've so far moved on from them. It's so out of touch. So yeah, almost done for time, gents. I just wanted to touch on the promotions that are kind of in the pipeline. I know there's a few referees that are in they're at the interview stage to go up into the various select groups. One of the the stars of the last season in terms of refereeing, Darren Drysdale. You remember the Ipswich incident there where he's, I think, snarled was the word, snarled at the Ipswich player. And then the whole debacle that came after that. He's actually... The Drysdale effect is in action now because not only referees backed him in that, but so much of the football community just went, fair play there. I would have reacted exactly the same. And it was a talk about a generational shift. That was a huge step forward to the way that referees were perceived, because that was like a watershed moment of everyone going, oh shit, yeah, no, he's taken a lot there.
Got the momentum. Jack Grealish, he made a thing saying, we understand referees are human and that can happen, and let's move on, let's not punish him. And a lot of fans got on the back of that tweet from Grealish, which I think was the real catalyst for that sort of conversation.
The judge himself said, do you know what I mean? But like, the story is, for too long, the desensitisation of referee abuse has just been allowed to happen. To go right back to what we said to Troy, everyone rights to address all forms of abuse. When it comes to referee abuse, no matter what colour, creed, or gender or persuasion you are, you're fair game, mate. You're going to have it. You got these knobheads putting out a tweet saying, enough is enough, social media abuse. Let's stop it. I'm going to stay away for this weekend. Some of the first tweets they put out was having to go with my team. You're like, really? Can you not see what goes on here? And I think two things. Going back to what you said about Howard Webb, top troll lads. Me history with him. Really, really, really top lads. You look at people like him and the people who run the FA, only way I would judge people is, could I have a pint with him? You look at the people who's there now, nah. Look at someone like Howard Webb. Even Peter Jones, who's got a really good reputation, who's a good top lad. These sort of people who can connect. It's that connection that's been missed, and so many referees have been disenfranchised for years. And then tying that in with the Darren Drysdale effect. Oh my God. Just how good was that? I know it's not something we condone or we think should happen, but absolutely fully understand. Absolutely. The amount of things people have said to me on the pitch over the years that they would never say in a pub. Not a million years. They say it to me because I've got my referee's kit on. So you've had it so. And you just think, knobheads, you're just knobheads. You're playing on the fact that we love our game and we don't want to throw our passion away for a knobhead. So we accept it and give you a card or don't give you a card or whatever. But that's the thing that's got to change. And I think Howard could do that. He's the things he's talked about right back, typical human nature in it. All we remember is that tackle that De Jong did on Alonso in the World Cup final. What journey is Howard Webb to get to there? Do you know what I mean? And that's all they remember. It's just human nature. But then it all gets forgotten about. We say, Howard's great. Mike Dean will be another one. Imagine Mike Dean running the referees department of the FA.
I'd love to see it. I really would.
How good would that be? Oh my God. He's just perfect, isn't he? Perfect. But I just think it's this, the more we get away from this upper class, unapproachable, quite frankly, bullying attitude that's been within the FA for years, the more we get away with it. That goes right down to some county FAs. Some county FAs think because they're an RDO, they can talk to you like shite. just as guilty as players, so as referees. And I just think there's a whole atmospheric change that needs to happen in the world of refereeing and football would gain from it. And I just hope that when they have this restructured referee department, particularly, they have that in mind about bringing the game forward and learning from the mistakes those people have made over the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, definitely. And that, I think, absolutely is a fantastic point to end this episode on. Gentlemen, it's been good after what's been just over 8 weeks, a little bit more since we recorded the last one. So it's been good to see you both again. It's been great to do this again. And for you who has just watched this, one of the many thousands of referees that join us for these podcasts, thanks very much for watching, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye.